Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here for the fourth, I believe, Chief Delegate update, and yeah, lots to talk about. We've been just contending as a community with all sorts of interesting situations, and yeah, we have a bit of an agenda to look at today. If Chris can pull that baby up, and yeah, we're going to keep it a little short and sweet. We've had some deliberations, so this will be a pretty quick update. Those are my words, Chris. How dare you?
You want the previous actions? Bring up that spreadsheet.
No, this is fine either way. But yeah, let's go around and review to start off. Previous actions. It's probably a good idea. You're more familiar with everything that's on this document than I am, so
I think we can zip through this. Forming other Edens, we're leaving that alone. Clarion's doing it. Eden Media Asset Ownership. The last kind of lingering piece we weren't sure about was the assets that Annabella had, so we still need to get in touch with her. The EdenEOS.org website, which has been a really fun one for us to talk about internally. We've had some really, really fun banter. And we're going to go back to Ray and sort of figure out how we're going to get this handed over to us. And we're not sure about the Pomelo pitch piece, but we'll figure that out shortly since it's coming up very soon. Eden Bylaws. I don't know if we have anything we want to talk about for that, other than we're kind of following up with Dan on getting a draft. I don't think we've made any progress there, right?
No, I think he's so deep in pioneering a new form of justice, we haven't had a chance to get any bylaws from him. But it's possible that bylaws may touch on the next or a future discussion about the DAC-DAO situation. But carry on.
Yeah. And at least justice will probably, his whole justice solution will end up being a whole suite of bylaw sections, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, there was the shared Eden Chief Delegate EOS account. Last update, John was communicating with Clarion team to see about getting the Eden name.
Yeah, that looks like there hasn't been much movement on that. We might be better off just jumping on our own account. It won't be as fancy as that one, but if we did want to do multi-sig, then we can just create our own account, and it would just live for the most likely just for our term, or technically if we really want, we can multi-sig our way out of it. It's up to us.
All right, sounds good.
I like that phrase, multi-sig our way out of it.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we can just multi-sig our way out of it. What does that mean?
You can multi-sig your way out of any problem on the SIO if you have multi-sig MPPs.
Yeah. All right.
So the next one's mission statement. We were going to look at, we have a bit of a list started. Shit, I can't see it. Hold on, I gotta
mission vision. Next one to the left. Oh yeah.
I know, but the controls for Zoom, it's like in the way, so I can't get
to it. I can guide you. Left 2 inches.
Yeah. So that hopefully you see that. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. Got it. So I don't know how much time we want to spend on it, but there's a few ideas here. I'm not sure if individually you guys have had much chance to add to it yet.
And perhaps we can go around and update what we think should be the mission statement.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Jesse?
Yeah, so okay. With the the timing of our time as chief delegates, I'd like to take a more of a, the more I think about it, the more a short-term kind of mission statement should be for us. So I just feel like being more basic is better. And so it would just look something like we are elected to delegate funds from the Eden Treasury to empower EOS and Eden. So just a really kind of basic framework there.
Can I go next? Because that kind of fits with the one I wrote here, which sort of fits. It not exactly needs tweaking, but to utilize the fractal democratic process for more equal animals, to select representatives that will allocate community funding for the betterment of the EOS ecosystem as a whole. I didn't include Eden in there, which is what you mentioned, Jesse. So maybe I could slip that in for the betterment of Eden and the EOS
like that.
ecosystem.
I might even say be less specific on some of this stuff. I mean, more equal animals is the origin of a lot of this, but I don't know. There's just a lot of keywords.
Yeah. So for me, what I had in mind is consensus process. Consensus process. Right? Is that good enough or no?
As opposed to...
Oh, you mean the Eden consensus process instead of just saying Eden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consensus process instead of writing the whole thing out, maybe.
Well, the Eden process is just a method of what we reach consensus with, isn't it? Is it something that we would put in the mission statement?
No, because what Chris is saying is that we are using that process to, select representatives to allocate funds, right? And that's how I see it. And I actually agree with that. So I was just saying that if we are thinking about the keywords, which is something that I thought it was just a lot of it, maybe we can just shorten it out. But that's just my opinion,
Oh, I see.
Well, yeah, I like any amount we can truncate it and make it a little less wordy would be great. Yeah,
100%.
I think
that was just a stab I made a half hour before this meeting because I wanted to have something there.
Yeah, this is something that we should probably do on, I think better with my fingers on a keyboard when it comes to this sort of thing personally. But
I think just the general broader topics that we want to make sure we hit upon that express the goal in the most concise way possible is probably good. Because it says, we're here for the betterment of both EOS and Eden, which kind of go hand in hand. This process that we're going through, we want that process to improve so we can better serve EOS, which is our benefactor, our constituency essentially. So yeah, I think those are kind of the two big topics, and realistically that is our mission, is to improve upon this process to make this thing better. These things.
Yeah, so it sounds like we have consensus on this general idea.
Yeah.
From what Chris wrote.
Is there any idea missing from that?
Well, that's what I was wondering, because when we first spoke about this, the idea of Eden picking BPs became something that could be a part of our mission. And I think we got hung up there with whether that was a bit much. So
yeah, it's just not, in my opinion, it's not realistic in our term, for our term.
Well, yeah, are we talking about the Eden on EOS mission statement? Or are we talking about the sitting chief delegates mission statement then?
Yeah, because the next chief delegates can change it.
Yeah.
And I think, and by the way, guys,
I thought this was a draft to give to Dan and nail what Eden on EOS as a whole thing is.
Well, sure, but we won't be the final word.
Right. And remember, we're proposing this, and then the next chief delegates are going to approve this mission statement. That's how it works on Eden, right?
I thought, I don't know, given that Dan created Eden on EOS and he's deciding the bylaws, I thought he would decide this as well. I didn't think this part would get voted on.
I'm sure he'll have feedback, but
yeah, but we got to propose something. That's what.
Yeah. So are we proposing the sitting chief delegate term, or are we proposing Eden on EOS as a whole?
I think it's Eden on EOS as a whole. I think that whatever we come up with should be good enough that the next chief delegates will be good with it. They'll be like, yeah, that's our mission too.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, in that
so-
case, then I'll be against the idea of just keeping it contained for allocation of funds. So I think, maximizing the influence of EOS token holders and not tokens would be the big sort of, highlight. And then, with that, in order to, further achieve that, stuff like BP influence would be a goal. It doesn't mean it might not be realistic or it might be hard to do, but it'll be part of the goal, be part of the mission.
well,
I like the phrase maximize influence of EOS token holders, or EOS or Eden members, maybe. Go on.
Well, if that were the case, then yeah, we need some sort of BP influence.
There's the mission, but then there's also the methods in which we can accomplish the mission. And I think that so when we're talking about BPs, that's one of the methods to the mission.
But it doesn't have to explicitly say it in the mission statement. The method does not need to be in the mission statement.
Because the method could change.
Yeah.
But the
action-based statement.
But does that mean that we're in agreement? So not forget that. Keep going.
I was just kind of like reviewing the definition of the mission statement. The agreements about
whether I think we're in agreement on the statement of maximizing the influence of Eden members. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily have to agree on the method to do that. That's outside the purview of our purpose right now, and we're drafting the mission statement.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So let's put a bow on this, and I think we're good.
The one other thing that I would probably add, as I'm sitting here, is what we've been wrapping our head around this whole time, which is to articulate the organizational needs and directions of Eden on EOS, because that's one thing that we find ourselves right now wrestling with is questions about legal structure, questions about all sorts of other things. And I think that is a role that the chief delegate invariably has to contend with, is what shape do we take, so there needs to be an organizational piece to like further define or develop or articulate the organizational structure, kind of some way, shape, or form.
And if an organization does come out of this, the mission should also apply to that organization, like the actual entity itself. So I don't know.
Yeah, it would be overarching for sure.
Yeah. Process. I would also like maybe add principles, like, because anything we create has to kind of conform to the principles from More Equal Animals, or just the Fractal Democracy principles, but more broadly, like More Equal Animals. And we might run into some really weird edge cases here where we run into like, how do we navigate legal stuff when there are no instruments that exactly conform to the principles that we're trying to uphold and further, but nevertheless strive for that.
So it needs some wordsmithing. I think it's a good start. And if ever, just add it. We'll just iterate on this. I think it's good start. And then
that's probably the best brainstorming session we've had so far.
Vision, the vision I came up with that I liked was secure, because life, liberty, property, justice for all came up in every of these. Some people thought it was the mission, vision, and the values. So I think we should include it. But it's more of a vision thing. To secure life, liberty, property, justice for all through the EOS blockchain. That's what I added. Tying us back to EOS.
Yeah, I have no qualms with that.
Maybe it's for the EOS blockchain.
Mm. Yep.
Like, just to emphasize that, like, everything that we do is right now, this organization is for that ecosystem or the token holders or Like maybe there's other words that could be switched in and out. But I mean, really, this is an advocacy group for the community that chooses to be a part of this, and for those who choose not to. I mean, we are funded, like we are enabled by the community, and it's kind of like what originally some of the aspirations of BPs were, of the actual block producers. It's like you are being paid by this community and they are your constituents and you are there to serve and enable this thing to exist on their behalf. So there's a lot of similarities there with what we're doing here. We're just not block producers. We're using this new system of governance. So I don't know if any good ideas just came out of that small rant, but
no, yeah. I think so. How to articulate that in a sweeping vision statement is another question altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, by and for the EOS blockchain and its, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, let's we can move on. We're not deciding right now. And then values, I've added kindness, empathy, forgiveness, respect, and consensus. I don't know if consensus is really a value, but I just feel like it's kind of cool. There's some synonym that would fit.
I think it's not a value.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's borderline. It's like one of those words that can be applied multiple ways, but yeah, I mean, the desire to reach consensus, I think, is a value.
What about courage?
I like courage. The root of the word comes from the heart, same root Latin word that corazon, courage.
Mm-hmm.
Good word.
It's a good one.
What about accommodating instead of consensus?
I think empathy kind of covers, or tolerance. Tolerance would be a very Dutch way to go.
Transparency.
Yeah, transparency.
Yeah, we definitely have
That's definitely missing.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can just add that. That definitely needs to be in there. Yeah.
We can whittle it down, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellence, integrity,
okay.
And love. Cool.
Are we happy with our progress? It's there. So of course, this is a shared file for us all to review. Let's go back to OneNote. So we spent some time on mission statement. Sorry.
We can take a swing at trying to like wordsmith that off meeting sometime. That might be more productive than, but this is good. Spitballing. I like it.
Yeah. And the last one was the Eden as a DAC on the ongoing list of stuff here.
Yeah. So just today we met with, it was three of us were able to attend, and we have that call to refer back to, although it was not meant to be for public dissemination. So I'll go ahead and produce notes from that call, but I can say that, and then love to hear your perspective on it, Chris and Jesse, the other two chief delegates that were there. Yeah, we had a call with Jacqueline Radabau and Yev, cannot pronounce her last name, Jason Weiner, attorneys, and kind of gave us, like, learn more about what we're up to, and gave us the skinny on the strengths and weaknesses of the various legal structures that may be available to us, be that cooperative structure, the LCA structure out of Colorado, or the DAO LLC, and then there was another one mentioned that it's escaping my brain right now, but it was kind of a nonprofit option. I don't think it's really right for us, but and then she also brought up a really interesting point. I think Jacqueline or Yev brought up an interesting point that you can kind of create a siloed structure to like kind of take care of certain operations that interface with the legal side of things that the organization could kind of like lean on for that role. So there's like some hybrid solutions to consider as well. Jesse?
Yeah, I thought I didn't actually interpret it the way you just said, but I don't exactly have like a legal mind. So, but anyways, from my highlights were I was most interested in the difference between the Wyoming LLC and the co-op DAO out of Colorado, and they're very similar according to Jacqueline and Yev. The co-op seemed better suited if you wanted your own token, and there was a liability protection, and I can't remember the word that they used.
Patronage.
Yeah,
maybe?
patronage. Yes, that was it. Thank you. But we don't have our own token, obviously. Perhaps we will want one in the future, but I think it's kind of, either one would work. So yeah, either one, Wyoming or Colorado, could work for what we would want if we do want to go in that direction. And yeah, that was kind of my takeaway.
You reminded me of one other thing, which is that one of the drawbacks of our current situation may be that in the eyes of the law, we may be considered a partnership that is unregistered. And it's one of the things that she kind of mentioned right out of the gate, which is that we have kind of a liability issue, which is that any actions taken by one of us can kind of come back to haunt the rest of the people in the group, potentially in the eyes of the law. So finding some solution to mitigate that one way or another is probably a good idea. Chris, did you have any takeaways?
Yeah, that was my takeaway. I asked the question, like for me, it's all about what's the pros and cons. Why do we want to do this? Why would we go through with it? And I think the answer essentially was risk tolerance. So if you don't, there's risks associated with not setting up a legal entity. And if you do, there's other challenges, but it's more of a risk calculation. So I found that interesting. So I think a little more guidance on what exactly those risks are and how they can manifest. She used the example, I think, of it's the idea of limited liability, where if someone takes funding and they she didn't use hire a hitman, but something like that, for example, we're all kind of on the hook for that. So all it takes is one rogue Eden member who got in, and all of a sudden they do something horrible, and we're all potentially liable.
Right.
I don't understand how that is, because I want to use a common sense approach. The US dollar, right? So someone, let's say I'm in an organization that is not incorporated, someone takes the dollar, hire a hitman, something happens. Why should I be responsible?
I think,
yeah. Sorry, go on, Lovejoy.
Well, I was just going to say that the law is not always sensible, but and irrational results may vary. But I think the law goes looking for who can take the liability for a particular action. And in an organization, it may be that in the eyes of the law, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, it could be looked at as though it's they'd be like, well, they're a partnership. If it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck.
No. But once you are incorporated, then you are partners, right? But if you are not incorporated, you are not partners. That's what I know, right? So a group of people, 10 people, can get together as friends,
unincorporated association kind of thing.
Yes. If you are not incorporated, but you are associated, right? Then you can have that. You are not partners. You are responsible for yourself. If you commit any crime, it's going to be for you. But once you incorporate, you are partners. Each person is going to be responsible for each other. I'm responsible for the other person.
This is why you should have been on the call with the lawyers. We needed you.
So I can go through some of these things, right? So when you are an LLC, you own your company. The reason why you are an LLC is because if I do something on my personal level, okay, you cannot sue my business. If my business does something, you cannot sue me, right? So my houses and everything is separate from my business. So it's very hard for you to, I mean, some people can try, but it's very hard for you to get assets that are not under my business, right? That's why you want to do an LLC, right? So it's the same thing goes for nonprofit. So you can be nonprofit and still make profit. So once you make profit, you have to pay taxes on the profit you made. So for hospitals, what they do is they form nonprofit entity, right? And they use that to find a way, like a siloed type of entity, which is physician association that is incorporated to hire physicians, okay? But the hospital as itself is a nonprofit which gets away with a lot of things, right? And then they use the physician association to hire people, and then they operate like that. So a lot of businesses are like that. They have different entities within it. So we can have Eden, which is made up of people from around the world, volunteered, donated their time, and also a treasury, not incorporated, but we can have a couple of guys who will have a project and form an LLC that will take responsibility for the treasury or for certain things, right? And those guys will be the guys who will be responsible for, let's say, assets and other things, right? So that's also there. We could do that. But to say that we want to incorporate, if we incorporate, then now one of the partners can sue each other, all right? If John is not happy, John can sue me, okay? Because we are partners. So everything we say, now we have to have a written, it's like we will end up going into a whole different level of legal stuff, right?
To be clear, though, an LLC is not a partnership, and a cooperative is not a partnership, just in the legal sense. So,
but when you have an LLC, right, you can still have partners in your LLC, right? You can have directors who are all together on that under that LLC.
That's the appropriate term, though. It's not partner per se.
Yeah, it's not partner per se. Yeah. So, so basically, my thinking is that everyone that joins Eden should have like some sort of a registered business, okay? Whether it's a sole proprietorship or it's LLC or nonprofit, whatever that they want to do, have their own taxes. We are not incorporated, but you are responsible for your own contract, right? Because we are volunteered individuals from around the world. So it's very hard for us to have association, which is incorporated around the world. So that's why people who form DAOs, they tend to have the tokens, because the token is sort of an investment. So now you will need a law that will pay for taxes and everything for everybody. But Eden is not like that. We don't have tokens. We don't have anything that binds us. We are just volunteered individuals from around the world, formed a community online. And we had a token from a blockchain donated to us for us to run projects. So anyone that takes a contract and get a currency has to now pay their taxes in their given jurisdiction. Because if you don't, then you can be liable for what you did not do. But you cannot come to me in Texas and tell me that you are in London and you didn't pay your taxes and you want me to be responsible. I don't think it's going to work that way. But
I was going to say, I think that what you just described is all of us working independently and as individuals, where we cannot come together and do something like an MSIG. Because the minute we do that and we start working towards a common good, then a relationship is established. And without any sort of legal protections for that cooperative effort, that's where it starts getting sticky. If we're all going to just operate independently and never work together with our own individual budgets, we could continue to operate that way. But there's been a lot of desire for us to come together to work towards a common good. So if we want to do that, some sort of entity needs to shield us, essentially.
Yes. And we can have a siloed LLC, right? Or siloed, right? If I'm saying it right. Siloed LLC that is going to take care of that for us, right? And that's where the conversation has to happen. We have to have a conversation. And I think maybe November 10th, right? We have a meeting coming up. Maybe we will sit down with Dan and talk about that aggressively, because if we have something like that, then it will help us so that the chief delegates can now work amongst themselves when they are together under that umbrella. If not, we have to be individuals and operate that way. And I think that's the best way to go, right? It is the best way to go, risk-free, so that we don't have to be worried about this, right?
Not necessarily risk-free. The only way it would be risk-free is if me, for example, never gave any of you money, or Chris or Brandon or anybody. Like, that's, we would be establishing individual relationships that then come with risk.
So hold up. If, let's say I'm gonna go back using dollars, right? I have some money and contract you, Aaron, for you to do something, or Grayman to do something, okay?
We need a contract.
The contract is between the two of us.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with Brandon. It has nothing to do with Chris or anyone. It's between the two of us. So when there's a problem, the two of us will solve that issue, right? So we can do that. We can work amongst each other by coming up with a contract that each individual agree with and have some sort of association, which is written. Sometimes it can be verbally recorded or written, because remember, a lot of times it's not someone else saying somewhere that sues somebody. It's going to be one of us, because someone is not going to be happy, right? It happens with business all the time. The person that you hire, that you put your trust in, is going to be the one that's going to sue you, right? My lawyers always tells me that. So you have to be very careful with those guys. And that's why when it comes to situations like this, you always want to make sure that everyone that's involved is happy and agrees to, I would say, the rule of engagement.
And that is true for engagements between us on these calls. But if you and I chose to join forces and hire an outside contractor to perform some service for Eden, we are both liable for what the other person does. Yes. So, and the same goes in reverse, is if you and I wanted to seek funding from Pomelo or something, we have this unofficial relationship now where we're both liable for whatever it is. Yeah. So without some sort of entity that we would serve as the board on during our term, we're all individually liable, as opposed to if an entity existed, that entity could
be liable,
be the one that's at risk.
Yes. Yes.
So it's a weird situation. I do think that maybe this topic needs to zoom out slightly. Right now we are exploring the DAC DAO type stuff, but maybe the topic itself is exploring an organization regardless of what it is. Does an organization need to be here for us to be a part of, so we can have, that thing can have a budget, that entity, has its own funding, that entity can contract with people, whether it's somebody that's going to do service A or B for us, and we can also be on the receiving end of the contracts. And if we had a big initiative that we as a team wanted to take on, we could KYC to something like Pomelo as that organization to then pitch something.
So Aaron, I think what you're saying is the best thing that you can do. But it's difficult to do that when you have people from around the world, right? And now someone has to put their neck on the line, right? Because once you form an organization, the person who is forming the organization or the person is forming an organization has to be responsible for anyone who, quote unquote, commits some sort of a crime, right? Because
no, the entity is responsible, not the individual people at that point. That's part of the whole reason for having an entity. International does add some like ambiguity to the situation, but it's not without precedent. Like there are plenty of, plenty of organizations that hire or have international members,
directors or board members or however it's formed. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you were saying, when there's a problem, right, they will come to the board members. So those are the people who will be in charge at that point in time. Right?
But it's not the board members that are at risk. It's the company that's at risk with the company assets and that stuff. Like the individual board members are shielded at that point, unless it's like deemed that they were individually doing this.
Right now, the board members are at risk.
Oh, okay. I think there's another thing that I was thinking about. If you form, let's say, an LLC or a nonprofit, then, okay, now I remember what it was. Then you have to pay the taxes at the top. The taxes becomes the problem. It's the taxes now I'm thinking about. It's the taxes that becomes the problem because you have to pay taxes for everyone else. Then everyone that's under contract also pays taxes. It becomes a C Corp. So you have to form a C Corp that pays the taxes at the top.
On profit, sure.
Yes, on profit.
But like you offset the profit with expenses. And if you're a not-for-profit, ideally you don't have profit to pay taxes on. Like if you account for it properly, then there's money coming in and there's money going out, and it negates each other essentially. So individually, if we took salaries or whatever, absolutely, like we pay taxes in our respective regions, if we're paying ourselves or paying somebody else. But otherwise, the contracts that originate from the legal entity create that paper trail so that we can hire people to do things for us as an organization. And then those individuals obviously pay their own taxes in their own ways. But I don't think the entity itself would have a tax burden or cut into anything necessarily.
Yeah, if we make it an S Corp.
Were there any other meeting items for us to address, or is it just this that we got to talk about?
It's the last thing on the agenda currently, unless someone else has something.
It was the last item on the ongoing issues that sprawled into the last item on the agenda. So
I guess maybe individual updates would be the last thing.
True. Oh, right. We did skip those.
Oh, you're muted.
Jesse, muted.
Sorry. I have an update about the forking comment and the confusion that sprawled after it from the speech that the EOS Foundation did in China. So I'll just tell a brief kind of synopsis of what happened. So this was last night that when it came out, there were two interpretations that people started to talk about. What does the fork mean? Was it a token fork or a code-based fork? And so
you might want to back up even more and talk about who you're referring to and what the speech was. And...
Yeah, so the speech, the EOS Foundation.
Actually, hold on, before you start, one more. You might want to start a new recording. I'm going to hit stop because I have to leave in 3 minutes.
Oh.
But you should hit start on record, so that way there's a continuation. So it would chop up your story otherwise, Jesse. So
thank you. Okay.
You have to give me permission.
I'll stop recording.
How much time do you have before you have to leave, Chris?
3 minutes, but that's okay.
You want to just do your update first, Chris, then?
I've spent a lot of time working on Pomelo pitches. That's basically my update. I've video editing extraordinaire, and I've done some great projects, Haifa DAO, EOS Daily, Titbit.io, EOS Power Network with James Mart, the education platform. So there's a bunch of mindweb.io, Patrick. So that's been the main, video editing is time consuming. There's my update. Yeah. Thank you. And I'll just drop off. So I'll keep listening while I can here, and then I got to jump to another call I'm on. So
okay, later. Have a good one.
All right. So I have an update regarding the event that the EOS Foundation put on to the Chinese-speaking EOS community. This was on, I believe it was on November 2nd. And then the news came out in the West on November 3rd. And so Zach had dropped these articles from crypto news platforms like CoinDesk and Crypto Potato. And there was one quote in particular that
Zach Gall.
Yeah. So Yves LaRose so Yves LaRose made the statement, and Zach Gall had dropped quotes, links from the crypto media outlets. And there was one quote in particular that described a fork. And I will read it. What we are experiencing is a shift whereby the US community is placing itself in a position to be able to move away from block one, essentially forking them out. Until this formal shift occurs, block one will simply continue weighing EOS down. And so there was two interpretations of this fork that was expressed in the Discord chat, in the EOS main Discord chat. And one was a token fork, where kind of like the Steam Hive situation, where you have two different tokens, and the other was a code-based fork. And so my first kind of reaction was, okay, well, maybe it's up to interpretation of the EOS community, and we need to kind of show as EOS community members what we support. And so on the night of November 3rd, we were talking in our Chief Delegate Telegram channel, and Aaron had wrote, Aaron and I essentially collaborated on a tweet. He had wrote his view on the code base fork, which is what at least him and I support. I think a lot of other community members did too. And so I tweeted that out, and it got a lot of engagement on that tweet. And by the way, and on an aside, I'll kind of maybe tie this in with my individual update. So 147 Bs got paid just the day before that. And we have this channel in our Discord called Engage All Bs. And the channel is designed for like really important tweets that we need to get out, that all 147 Bs should engage on that tweet to get the max exposure for that tweet. So like this was like the perfect situation to test this and to see how it would go. They just got paid for the first time. And so it was really interesting to kind of see what would happen. And about 85 of the 147 Bs tweeted that out. It got really great exposure. Our financial incentives are still pretty low. We average about 4.5 EOS per B salary every 2 weeks, 4.4 EOS. Anyways, so today, that confusion kind of still was out there. And I had DM'd with Zach Gall himself, and we had come up, I asked him, he clarified it to me in the DM, and I had asked if I can share some of his thoughts. And so me and him worked together of a statement that we could share, and I will read this to the community that should clarify this whole issue of the fork. And so here it goes. I had a conversation with Zach, and he provided clarification on the fork mentioned in Eve's speech. He's referring to distancing itself from block one, which could include a potential fork of the code repo. Basically, if you write code and want to get it in the current repo, it would need to be approved by block one. But there are EOS specific things that are not in the interest of a general EOS.io code base. So EOS could fork the repo and start its own. The BPs will decide which one to use. Because block one is focusing on their products and it's being predicted that they will soon no longer update the public code base, all of the BPs will switch to the EOS repo. This is not a token fork because there would be no point for the BPs to run a non-EOS specific code base. The fork in the speech was literally just about taking a different path. However, there's no infrastructure in place to execute right now, and the EOS.io code base is currently very stable. So this could involve a code fork, but it's not a guarantee because the infrastructure is not yet in place. It's more about placing ourselves in a position to be able to create our own repo. And so anyone worried about a token fork, that's not what's going on here.
Cool. Anyone else have any comments on that?
Yeah, I can just kind of chime in with other anecdotal evidence. This is a completely normal thing. If you go look at other EOS.io chains, they maintain their own code bases. They take changes from upstream that come from block one or potentially from other blockchains. But there are many of them that maintain their own, and it's called a fork. It's a fork of the code repository. They maintain this for their network, and that's what they operate based on. It is really unfortunate that this one term is very controversial in many ways within our space. But the minute you just get into like the software world and you start talking about forks, it's an everyday occurrence. There are forks of Anchor. There are forks of our open source libraries. It is a practice that software developers use. And in this context, that seems to be the case of what was talking about, or just even in general, like a fork in the road. I know that when we look at that term, a lot of people will think Bitcoin Cash. Like we had a really contentious fork that happened years ago. Ethereum Classic, another instance of that. Steem and Hive, that was another instance of that. So it is a alarming word. And in this sense, I think a lot of people took it as one thing when in fact it meant another. So let's try to remain calm, I guess. Like get your towel.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't mean by forking that we wouldn't inherit the upstream changes that EOS.io published from block one. So if they make a change that's in our interests, we can review the commit and basically adopt whatever change that they've done as well. So it's not like, again, I would say we'd never be any further away than like 95% the same DNA of EOS.io as well. And again, with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, again, there's like fundamental changes in, block sizes and stuff like that. But I think the idea of our sense is just one, having consolidation of our own code base, so that it doesn't have to go to block one to be approved before it's then reshared. So plus Dan's for this idea as well, isn't he? It's got Dan support, I believe.
I believe so. I mean, I think it had support in the really early days of EOS as well. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers when there was a small team of VPs that operated or maintained a fork of the code repository. Like a lot of us ran off of that.
I think now would be the best time to do it as well, because if Dan's now in the community, like, what better developer to have for advice if we did want to do, something. Like, I'm sure if we did branch off to some idea of our own, new feature in EOS, or our version of EOS.io, whatever we want to call it, we should give it a name, because other chains might want to spawn off that as well. But whatever we call it, if we do a PR, then chances are that we could convince Dan to take a peek at it and be like, this is something that I would have wrote it this way or wrote it that way. So yeah, now that he's a member of the actual community and not bound by block one, it's the best time to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Zach had sent me a link. Dan and the Clarion team apparently already have a potential EOS repo. GitHub.com/EOS community/EOS.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
I think a name would be helpful though. Like probably not like, I don't know, EOS mainnet repo like wouldn't be something that you would call it. I don't think. If we do create like a bunch of cool features, that it just makes sense, way more sense for a public blockchain, because like EOS.io from block one's quite like they're going for a corporate sort of target demographic, the last time I checked anyway, like private chains and things like that. So yeah, this is be something more of a public compatible version of EOS.io.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. Yeah, that sounds like a great thing to do.
Yeah, so it's all good, guys. We are going to have the great Dan Larimer starting to work on our code base specifically for the EOS blockchain, just EOS.io in general. So this is a great thing ahead. Again, there's a lot of infrastructure in place before that needs to get done. So this is a kind of a long-term thing. But it's optimistic.
It's looking good.
Yeah.
Trying to decide if I dare wade into the consensus issue. I'll just say really. Did you say yeah, Aaron?
Yeah.
I'll just say really briefly, like Yves Leroux in his comments at that speech also, or around there, was quoted as saying, the reality for those within the EOS ecosystem is that we have also reached consensus and agree that they are fraudulent, they being B1. And I think we just wanted to highlight that, well, this word consensus is a little tricky in this scenario.
Did you say, sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, like, there's a consensus among token holders, perhaps, that Eve is speaking to, which are going to be large block producers or exchanges or whomever. And then there's what we're trying to do here with Eden, which is create a process for reaching consensus among individuals, kind of irrespective of our token weight. And those are two very different things. And we're trying to create like a political community of EOS token holders, but organizing consensus in a very different way than stake-based. And so that statement is a little misleading in the sense that it attempts to portray the entire EOS community of a like mind, but I think he's speaking of a consensus of a very small set of people actually that are big, large token holders, but be that as it may.
So you reckon that he's speaking more for the majority of tokens rather than the majority of token holders?
That's how it reads to me. But I mean, that's how I interpret it, but it's not exactly like it. To read his statement, it sounds like all EOS token holders are like screaming fraud in the streets, which I don't think that's the case.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say I don't want to be I don't want to be in a position to like be defending what I see as some negligence on the part of Block One, but I think Chris, provided a really even-handed sort of like summation of what Block One has delivered, and I think we're trying to take a more neutral position in a lot of respects than what Eve is doing. So, what were we going to say, Aaron?
I also think that when that was quoted, it was quoted like without the full context. Like that one sentence was pulled out, and if you read the sentence before it, he's like, that is very much clarified in the same paragraph about the tokens holders that he speaks with, and then goes on. And with that context, he's saying the consensus among the people that he's talking with is that this is the situation. So I do agree that when, I don't even know where the tweets came from and whatever, but like when you pull that one sentence out, it makes it sound like everyone thinks this. But when you read the whole thing, like that, there is some semblance of this is a select group of people, that this group is in consensus about this idea. So crypto media loves to do this.
Don't let them turn us against each other.
Right?
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because it was the other elephant in the room in my mind. It's like this, sowing these seeds of division, sort of.
Well, and on the flip side, I've seen seeds of like, I don't know what to call it, false hope, in that people like took the one quote about venture capital and they pulled that out of the paragraph, and they're like, look, there's funding. And it's like, no, that like, if you read the whole thing, it says that there are conversations happening for this potential thing to happen. But like people have just grabbed the idea and they're like, yeah, look at all this funding. And it's like, no, just like, talk about the whole thing and don't just pull one sentence out and present it as fact. So it's hard though, because people will pull little pieces out, both positive and negative, and try to spin a narrative around it. So do your own research.
So quick one here. So what do we conclude on with in terms of the DAO situation, LLC situation? I don't know what the final take is.
We did kind of bounce off of that.
I don't think we concluded anything.
I think further investigation is warranted. I'd like to pull Dan and the Clarion team in if we can actually get them in a room to discuss this sort of thing.
Yeah, we have a meeting with them next week. So we'll,
Oh.
Yeah, the 10th.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure like what anyone wants to go on the record as saying from a legal standpoint. So that's what I meant. Not like, can we get them in a room, but can we get any public comment on legal matters? I don't know. So,
okay.
But that's understandable.
Whatever that we said here is not financial advice or any legal advice. We're just having a discussion, right? Regarding, DAOs, DACs, and how they are. So, I forgot we didn't throw that out there. So,
I think to put just something like my opinion on this matter is that if we are going to be working together and potentially establishing shared pools of funds somehow, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable if there is a legal entity there. Like I'm already, like I don't want to have that burden on me as an individual, and I'm hesitant to take on responsibilities with my corporation. So I would be most comfortable if there was something there that allowed us to work together towards a common good, which could be a DAO, it could be a not-for-profit, it could be a company. I don't know what it is, but I think that there is a problem here, and I wouldn't be alone in my opinion on this for future elected officials. I think that if we could establish something that the next electorate could use as well, and everyone beyond it, like that would be a huge win for us as a group. Like I think we need to set the precedent of how we operate moving forward. And this is one thing we can investigate and look into as we move forward.
But it's not so much the DAO part that we're seeking, right? It's just limited liability.
It's whatever legal structure we need to adopt in order to protect ourselves and continue doing the work that we want to do without being more harassed or encumbered by potential problems than necessary. I mean, I think no matter what we do, this is an edge case. There doesn't seem to be any legal structure that's like perfect, and people are kind of pushing the limits on a lot of different areas. And maybe that's our responsibility, is to try and push the limits, but do so in a way where we're also, doing it smartly and covering our ass and working with some lawyers.
So if that's the case, right? If that's the case, we should just I have a solution. This is not legal advice. It's just an idea, an opinion. All right. Because I have a lot of people that I talk to regarding this. So that's why I have a lot of knowledge about this. There's one thing we could do, right? So we can create a DAO just for the chief delegation. We can call it something. Right? We can call it, like, it's just like the CELO.
But hang on, when you say DAO, do you mean legally recognized company?
Yes, a legally recognized.
Okay, can we start using that phrase, because a DAO,
that's true. Okay,
isn't that?
Yeah, so we're gonna create an LLC with a smart contract that
might not be an LLC though.
Huh?
I said it might not be an LLC. We just need a legal entity of some kind.
Yeah, but I think if
regardless.
We do, because there's a reason why I'm using that. If we do Wyoming LLC, okay, because Wyoming, if you want to let the smart contract control the entity, right, you cannot make it a nonprofit. So it has to be an LLC with a smart contract controlling that department. We can do that. I know that for a fact. Okay, this is not legal advice, but I know that for a fact. And we have to get someone who's going to be the agent. Okay, we need a legal agent in Wyoming, because we have to have like a lawyer in Wyoming who is going to represent us. If we do that, we can create this. It's not a big deal. We can create it, but it has to be like a department. And now that department can hand off to each other and come and work under that LLC that we create. All right, that's something that we can look into aggressively. And I think, Jesse, if really talking to a person in Wyoming, you know this, because I've had a discussion with a lawyer from there, right? You need an agent who's going to represent us, a legal agent that is going to represent us, and we can form the LLC and allow the smart contract to take over the LLC, but it has to be like a department. We have to create like a department.
Well,
I don't understand that very last part. So I understand everything that you're saying. It's called an algorithmically managed DAO in the Wyoming nomenclature. But what's this department?
So
what do you mean by that?
So I'm saying that creating a DAO for the whole of Eden might be a big thing to do.
Oh,
right?
I see. Just for the chief delegates.
Just for the chief delegates.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think
maybe the delegates.
Maybe. I think we should focus on us to start with, and then maybe it also applies to the other delegates so they can pool and whatever. But this is a solution to the problem we're kind of identifying here. Like, it's one solution. I don't know if it's the right solution. I don't know. But I think that, like, what our goal here should be is just that we solve this problem, so that way future elected groups don't have to solve this again. Right. We're the pioneers, and we should kind of create the path for others to follow behind us with. And that could be what you're describing. I honestly don't know yet. I think that we're not going to solve that on one of these calls. It's probably going to take a lot more background work. I mean, we can talk about it plenty here too, but
well, Aaron, we talked to some professionals this morning, and there was kind of just three options on the table, according to them. But they're not the gods of this.
Yeah, but hang on, these professionals, they're selling the legal services, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, yeah, like those are the options that they have on offer. Obviously, they're not going to say, "Oh, by the way, in Gibraltar, there's actually a way better deal," are they? So
right.
Like that's another thing. Like, why? Is there a particular reason we're focusing on the states, or is it purely because the law sounded cool with Wyoming? Because again, we can still do Cayman Islands, Gibraltar. We've got the whole world to pick from.
Well, to be fair,
we can do that, right? Brandon, I can talk to that. We can do that, But the problem with that is when you are a person from the US and you are outsourcing like that, it becomes a little bit tricky tax-wise, okay? That's the one thing that I know of that I always get a little bit hesitant. That's the only thing, that's the only reservation I have with that.
The panel discussion that I linked to the other day, as well as the conversation today, both kind of, it seems to me based on, not considering international organization, but US-based law, that it's either DAO LLC or Colorado LCA cooperative law. And those are the two options that we have. And you can look at Opolis as an example of one way that the Colorado LCA has been used to create like a freelancer platform built around a DAO.
And I think
that's interesting.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that what we may need could be similar to what the foundation is set up as well. They are essentially being funded the same way we are. And essentially, like, we're going to hire people to do tasks. Maybe we want to give out grants if the budget is large enough and we have like a clear vision of what we need to do with things. And that's not to say that like we lose our individual Eden budgets like we have now, but I think with us coming together, it's really similar to that situation. And it might be worth exploring that as well and figuring out if a not-for-profit makes sense. Just in a very traditional sense. I know we would essentially need like professional services to manage it for us and people in the future. But I think that's true of any of these setups. So I think there's a lot of options. But I think what we should, like, pulling away from the options, it would be nice if we all either decided if this was a project that we as the elected officials should take on, is establishing the framework so that way other delegates in the future can be shielded like we want to be.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. I have a question, Aaron.
Sure.
This other entity, this other route of a nonprofit. The thing that attracted me to the Wyoming route is that they explicitly say legally that a smart contract can distribute the funds.
Yeah.
So is that a liability going a different route, like a nonprofit, like a standard nonprofit? If we have a multi-sig that handles the funds, is that a liability?
I have got to assume that since that's how the foundation operates, that there is some legal precedent there that says it's okay. Like they are receiving funds from a smart contract.
How do you know they're a nonprofit?
They announced it? Yeah, I think so.
Did they? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I think in Telegram, I've seen mentioned of that it is a nonprofit, and a nonprofit in Canada has all of their records public, I believe. Like this was something that you've had mentioned, was that like there's going to be transparency because of their not-profit structure. And like it's not to enrich themselves, or the company doesn't like have holdings essentially. They take money in and then they push it out for public good, and they have to be able to kind of prove that, which I think is why there's like KYC going on for all the grant recipients.
Sure.
But that's a protection mechanism for the people that are in the foundation. Like I'm not opposed to exploring other methods as well, but we do have a resource that's doing kind of what we want to do.
But there's something else, because if you are a nonprofit and you have board of directors, there is no, because I don't know how are they changing the board of directors, because
it works.
Wyoming DAO, you just basically come in and leave. It doesn't matter because a smart contract dictates for everyone.
It'd probably have to be a little bit more of a manual process. I worked for about 5 years for a not-for-profit, and the director did change and the board did change, and it was the typical
manual process.
Manual where they had a meeting and there were notes and just that kind of corporate feeder, I guess.
Mm.
And the reins were handed over, and then the legal entity was now led by this new person. So
Yeah,
I know
because
it.
with this, it's going to be every 6 months. But with
Yeah.
each situation, he's going to be there for a while, right? So
Yeah.
I think if we are going to do this, we should just do it in a way that every 6 months or so, you come in, you leave. Smart contract is responsible and is taking care of everything.
I don't think it's
contract.
magic.
Huh?
I said I don't think it's magic.
No,
I think
so
there's
it's-
still legal
it's-
paperwork that would have to be done.
Yeah, it's not magic. They offer pretty much a blank sheet. You can set whatever structure you want to handle people going in and out.
In and out.
That's set by the members. But I think Randall brings up a good point that to me the main difference between how the EOS Foundation works and what we're trying to do is that our members are going to be in and out a lot more
It's
frequently.
not about our members, though. It's about us.
It'd be about both.
It's about the chief delegates.
Yeah, just the chief delegates, though.
So
Right,
I
and
just
that's
wanted
what I
to
mean.
be clear. Okay.
Right. So the chief
well,
delegate turnover is a lot higher than the EOS Foundation.
So let me bring this. EOS Support is a nonprofit. EOS Support is a nonprofit, but it works because the directors are going to be there for a little bit, for a while, right? So it makes it much easier. But when you have a situation where you have multiple people coming in and out, in and out, in and out, it makes sense for you to do like the Wyoming DAO. And I think we have to now explore that aggressively. I think that's the most sensible way for us to go.
I would be curious to know, like, at a process level, how hard both of them are, because I think that they're basically the same thing. Like, even if the smart contract in the DAO changes whose leadership, there's still paperwork that's going to have to be filed to change the board of directors within a DAO. Like, I don't think it's just...
that's correct. That's probably correct.
It's not just what the smart contract says.
Let's not take cooperative law off the table here, because that's a legal organization that is very good at managing membership and has a long precedent at handling,
but isn't cooperative law for the state that you are in, for that specific state?
You form it under, in this case, you would form it under Colorado cooperative law in the same way you'd form the DAO under Wyoming, because they kind of consider like the Delaware of cooperative law. And and to answer your other question, Jesse, about the smart contract bit, that was spoken to earlier today in the conversation as well. Like, there is no specific smart contract language in the cooperative law, but as Jackie indicated, like, it's being done, and it's something that where you just point to the cases where it is happening, that it's definitely a conversation. I mean, this is all very bleeding edge for any legal structure, and the DAO explicitly names it, but that doesn't mean it's off the table for other legal entities. It just means it needs to be kind of a conversation with the IRS or whoever.
Yeah, I do think that exploring both traditional and new age, weighing the pros and cons of both of them. Like, we have the cooperative and not-for-profit on one side, and then we have DACs and DAOs and all these new things on the other side. Like, as somebody that works in technology, I know that if you go to the bleeding edge of something, you're going to run into problems. So that's a con for DAC DAO and a pro for a potentially legacy system. But we should dig into this and see if there's a way that we can set this up for ourselves and other generations of this. And for like one point on the frequency that I just remembered, like, we're still not even sure how long we're going to be here. Dan had mentioned like the overlap of terms. Like, it could be that in 6 months, 6 new delegates come in and we're still here. We don't really know at this point that it's going to be a complete shuffle. There may be some overlapping terms to help with transitions, and that could be handled in the same way no matter what our structure is. So there's a lot of uncertainty. We should definitely talk about this on our call with Dan, though, and see if he has any ideas.
Yeah, we might get a lot of clarity there. And also, do we have the appetite to commit any of our budget to paying for professional advice? That's my next question, because
yes,
we can get it. Okay.
I think that it's. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just going to say I'm willing to point some of my budget at getting that professional advice that we need from lawyers. But
how much money do you have, Lovejoy? It seems like your budget is doing a lot of work.
It's yeah, it's less single-minded than everyone else's budget at this point, and Aaron's got like the most budget, so.
And it's a direct benefit to this process. Like if part of our mission is to make Eden successful so we can make EOS successful, then any improvements we can make to our process are going to benefit and amplify whoever comes next.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I like it. I think if we can explore both and then find an agent who can represent us, I mean, we should just execute, because I think we can do this. This is not, I mean, we have to think about things, but it's not too hard. We have to be able to do this within a month or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we can hit a point where like this does work, then maybe we can talk about with Dan and the Clarion team about having some sort of budget that goes to that during each election for those who are elected.
Yeah.
Like, and then we have that shared pool that I think all of us have expressed little bits of desire for. It would be a shared pool that is owned by this entity that then the directors, which if it existed today, we would be the directors or whatever the title is, just using that word, would be able to direct those funds. So it wouldn't just be a multi-sig of a bunch of individuals, which we could do today. But
I think John is tired. We probably have to,
we should adjourn.
Sum this up so he can get some rest.
Yeah. Did we have anything else?
Unless we want to do any individual updates really quick.
Individual updates. All right, let's see.
I'll do mine fast. I'm plowing through the videos, taking notes. I'm going to produce a summary of pretty much like the entire election we just went through, as well as I have some thoughts I'm going to share. We're coming up on the month anniversary of the election, which I just learned is the mensiversary. It's a term for that.
Huh.
So yeah, looking for, and I've been kind of like a little paralyzed, I think, along with some of the other chief delegates about the funds. I haven't claimed the funds yet, just because I think we're all still in such a nebulous space with like legal issues, but I think that should be resolved at least temporarily soon on my end. And Pomelo, I always say it wrong, Pomelo pitches, and kind of look into that and how we can maybe leverage some of the budget for on behalf of the entire Eden membership. So
cool.
But just to be clear, none of us are hindered from using the money. Even sorry, let's phrase it wrong. We do have that button, remember, where we can transfer funds internally. So if that does hinder you of transfers, that is also an option. Again, Clarion are going to support it, in the app later down the track. They've got a few things that they could update, but I can help you nurse through any transaction that anyone did want to do, just through blocks. If you need help doing it as well, there's a few parameters that you need to make the magic happen.
Definitely going to be coming to you for that.
Yeah, so update for me, we had an exchange that was having difficulty integrating EOS. I arranged a meeting with CC32D9, and we are helping them to integrate EOS at the moment. We integrated EOS support with EOS Daily so that they can have the Chinese community also reach out for user support. We have successfully onboarded some of the members from the Korean community and Chinese community. We are working on Spanish community at the moment. We are working on onboarding people for the German community And actually, I was supposed to have a meeting with the French community, but our meeting lasted a little bit longer, so I wasn't able to do that. But that is going to happen tomorrow. We are also working on making our website multilingual, so we can have different languages interacting with our main website as well. EOS support smart contract has been audited by CC32D9 and Cryptic Baba. I spoke to Francis. Francis cannot help us moving forward, but I have a contract with a gentleman who is going to be helping us with it, so we can have it deployed by maybe next month. We are still developing some of the things with the website and the platform. I'm working on the payment algorithm as well, something that's still ongoing. And also the ability to rate dApps. We are building that. I'm almost done with the design for that. So that should be coming up probably next month or so. That's about it for now.
That's great to hear, Randall. I'm so excited that you're working on other languages, and then we can continue connecting with our other languages. Like, for example, in our Discord, we have a channel category for support. And right now the English channel goes to EOS support IO, and we just have temporary the ticket bot tool in place for the other languages. So as soon as you get those other languages up, and you have a web page that it's translated, we'll send those support requests in our Discord to you.
So actually, the Chinese support, we have two Chinese. We have Gracie, and we have Josh for now. And Josh is going to reach out to you to get a translation for your articles. We have a beautiful how-to, okay, on the help center. So you can literally, what we did was we created question marks for each thing, right? Why EOS, right? And we have the English version. You can go to the Chinese version. You can go to the French version. You can go to the Korean version. So we're going to make it like that. And then we're going to have a solution bot, which will allow people to just type it in, and it will just bring out what the articles are. Yeah.
So the landing page will just be in English always, but with the option to change the language.
We are working on it. We are going to have it multilingual.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, as well.
Okay, I'll give a quick. So bees got paid for the first time, 147 bees, 648 EOS across 147 bees. And so that was exciting. I kind of underestimated the time and the tech needed to do that. Chris showed me his interview with Haifa DAO. They have batch payments. We will be donating to them because we need batch payments, because that was real tedious. I also want to say publicly that I have gotten a few private requests to hire the bees for our various services. The two most popular were our translation services and the reach of our Engage All Bees channel. So if you want to hire our 147 bees across 6 languages to like your posts, we have that available. We're working on our internal prices. We think we have some appropriate and fair prices for those services. So if anyone wants those services, we are open for business.
Very cool.
Yeah, perfect.
Does that mean I can engage you, Jesse, if I need translations done for my Pamela pitch?
Yes, of course.
Cool. I'll swing you a message.
Yeah, we've needed good translation suite for a long time, so I'm glad you've got a nice, robust team of people to work on that and to check each other. That's always like the weird issue with translation. It's like you get one translator, you're like, well, I gotta hire another translator to translate, make sure the translator's being, on the up and up. Yeah, Aaron, did you have anything?
Yeah, I hadn't gone yet, but I'm continuing to work on the legal structure between myself as an individual and Greymass as a company to be able to use that channel. That's requiring our legal to be involved and setting up all that fun stuff that I never understand personally. But development in the background is continuing on our kind of pitch for onboarding solutions. I'm not the one personally working on it, but my team is working on it. Our plan right now is not to touch the funding for ourselves until we have something. Like, we're not going to pay ourselves until we have a really good idea of like what it took and have something to show for it. So in this initial phases, like, I'm more looking to use that extra budget for other things. So once I can do that, that's probably where this initial stuff will come from. And then towards the end of the cycle of us being elected, I'll reconcile like gray mass projects against the budget and outline it all so it's very transparent. I know that one of the things that we as a group should try to do is just be as clear as possible about like what initiatives that we undertook. You know, it's, as Eden representatives, it's our reputation about how like effective we were with those budgets, as to that'll affect our odds next go around if we choose to participate. So coming up with a good structure for that's important, and making sure that it's transparent. So we're in no rush to pay ourselves right now. I mean, we are an organization that needs money. We're hiring right now, but we are in a position where we can do a little bit of that right now. And we're pulling some people in that are going to be working part-time to begin with. So it's not quite the expense as if we're like onboarding full-time developers. So hopefully that'll change early next year, but we're making progress.
That's cool. Just for Greymass, hopefully your guys can donate to the bees and donate to EOS support. Okay, just 10 EOS per. All right.
All right.
So that we can get more funds going. Yeah.
Yeah, they're both important services. And while I won't commit to us using those services through our end, just there's a lot of complication there. Anyways, I do see the value, and it helps a lot of people. So it's just the minute we start talking about outsourcing our wallet support, that's when it starts to get risky on our behalf. So we'll navigate those waters in the future as we figure that out better.
There's always a way. There's
Yep.
always a way. All righty.
John?
Just been working on the Pomelo pitch, and then further, I've got new sort of pieces of little gems from a little bird on advice on what I can do with the site. So now I'm rethinking the entire app all over again for the seventh time. But yeah, we're working
with the bird.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, helpful, but yeah, come up with some cool ideas for Violet and where to take that for better adoption, more getting more people involved.
Cool. How's the rate of usage of Violet Garden so far?
It's good. Like, very happy with it. It's dropped down a little bit, but yeah, there's just so much cool stuff to add still, and I'm kind of glad that hasn't been too much engagement, because again, just the more engagement, the more things go wrong, the more urgent everything is. So I'm trying to make it as scalable as possible. There's some parts of it that still just don't scale right, and I'm just riding on the fact that it's still small time, but the whole thing could go to shit if too many people used it. So yeah, it's always an ongoing battle.
John, I have a question for you. How you gain the EOS? How you gain that EOS and that liquid EOS to give to everyone?
Oh yeah.
I put up a couple of grand of my own money and just put it into a bank call pool, and trades just go against the bank call pool.
Wow. very dedicated man.
But there is a bit of a fee on it. But again, that just goes back into liquidity pool, so it just makes it nicer for the next person. I don't intend in profiting from it because it's not a lot anyway. But yeah, there will be new options for expanding that as well. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, maybe it would be cool to give a portion of the token supply to the Eden Treasury as well. If you guys would be happy with that, once I've mapped everything out, I've still got to do the whole. I essentially need to make a damn white paper, for all the tokenomics and everything. But that's something that I'd like to see.
I knew you were going to be nice to us.
All right, guys. Well, this was a long one, and thanks for sticking with it. And to anyone that made it to the end of this recording, I salute you. And maybe you learned something, and I think we did. I think we did too.
It was only an hour and 40 minutes, the recorded part. But
true. Yeah,
we've been here almost 3 hours.
An hour before that, yeah, at least. But
we're trying to make the best out of our chief delegate time here. We're trying our best for everyone, and I'm just really grateful for the people on our team. I think we have a really talented crew, and we're going to do our best for EOS and Eden. So thank you for sticking with us.